So we can welcome back, everyone. We continue. We're by Pirkei Zayin. We're going to start Pirkei Zayin Shemona Prakim. Pirkei Zayin is so really, it's interesting if we could split it up like this. We said the way we explained them, we learned Perik. So what we said a couple of times already is that really the Shemona Prakim is, you can really split into it. Shemona Prakim is 1 through 5. That is Shemona Prakim. The other 3 are Nispachim. They're appendices. So Perik Vav, which we saw the past few days, explored the question of who is the ideal person. Is it, when we're talking about midas, when we're talking about personality traits, we're talking about morals and ethics, who is more of a moral person? Who should we look up to? Is it someone who is naturally pious, someone who doesn't, is not tempted to steal and murder and kill and do Averis, or someone who is tempted and has all these desires, but he suppresses them and he has self-restraint and self-control and overcomes them. So what are we, and we saw that it's not only a theoretical question, these, depending on what we see as the ultimate person and the goal, is going to take us in very different trajectories. So that was the question we explored. The Rambam really says that they're both true. On the one hand, the Rambam's mahalach was, and it's not so simple, but we're learning Rambam, the Rambam's mahalach was that they're both true at the same time. And that certain Averis, in what we call the intuitive Averis, and that is the things that we would have said it anyway, like Geneva and Gizela and Retziche, and cheating in business, and being loyal in marriage. These certain in incest, some of these things that are self-understood. They're self-understood across the border, and they're intuitive. These type of things, the Rambam agrees to the philosophers all the way, and he says that it's obvious that someone who is not tempted and has no inclination to engage in these debased and animalistic behaviors, such a person is definitely an elevated person, and we should strive to come to a situation where we are not tempted to steal, and where we can pass by someone else's house and we're not jealous. And that's what we should strive for. We should strive to work on our character, to refine ourselves to the point where we don't want to engage in these not only engage in activities. That emotionally we rise above it, and we're not tempted to engage in these things. Versus revelational mitzvahs, and these are mitzvahs like shatnez and eating chazer and eating basar b'cholov, a certain arayas. These are the type of things that there's no reason that a person should come to a situation where he says, I don't want to eat basar b'cholov. Quite to the contrary, lufim tzara agra means that as much as you want to eat crabs, like I said, these bachram and eish that told me that they crave the crabs. There's no reason you should come to a day that you don't want to eat crabs anymore. And it's not that you're becoming a more holy person if you say, Fech, I'm not even tempted to eat something. No, Chazal say there is no virtue in that, quite to the contrary. Every day that you say that I'm tempted because there's nothing morally and ethically wrong with eating crabs and basar b'cholov, it's just that the Torah doesn't let you, it's a choik. Now, we said, there's a bigger shmuz, the Rambam disagrees with this concept of splitting the Torah into these two categories, because the Rambam believes that even chukim have inherent there is meaning that a person could understand. If a person puts his mind to it and he tries to understand the mitzvahs in the Torah, he could come to understanding, and the Rambam believes that there must be an understanding in every single mitzvah in the Torah. The Rambam says that someone who assumes otherwise is a cholei nefesh. And this is part of a bigger shmuz, because this has to do with the Rambam's general philosophy of how he looks at mitzvahs. The Rambam in Nevuchim Chelik Gimel Perek Lamed Aleph, it's a beautiful Rambam, kedai to read inside. Obviously, there's a big Rambam in the Shittosoi. The Rambam in Nevuchim Chelik Gimel Perek Chav Zayin, Perek Lamed Aleph, later in the end of the Nuns. This is something the Rambam comes back to a lot, but it's a very fundamental Rambam, and that is that it's beautiful. It doesn't come into what we're saying. It's really part of the last year. But the Rambam there says that there's certain people that have this disease, sort of, that they think like this, that if something is intuitive, something makes sense, something resonates, then it's not godly. Because that anyone could have said. Sort of, this is, I don't want to say this, but it's sort of there's something very, I don't have the right word, about the das balabatam hepech das Torah idea, right? Meaning that whatever you think is wrong, and in order for it to be godly and Torahic, then it must be something that you could have never thought, and it wouldn't occur to you, and if it gives you a balabatish benefit, then it's not godly, then it's balabatish. And the Rambam says that's absurd. That makes no sense. Because if the Torah, if there's no, if for something to be godly, it could make sense. If something someone else says can make sense, then why something that Hashem says shouldn't make sense? And if something makes sense, fakir, the more sense it makes and the more benefit you see that you could have from it, then the more godly it is. It's not the other way around. It's a paradigm shift, really, how you look at the Torah and how you look at how Hashem wants to be mechanech us. No, sometimes Hashem gives you a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda and not letting people be rebis and keved avim because Hashem wants you to be a mensch and Hashem wants you to be a worked on person that doesn't get lost in greed and jealousy and all these things. Yeah, and that's the benefit. And in a certain sense, that's it. Now, obviously, there's always deeper and higher and whatever it is. But there's nothing wrong. You don't have to run away and say, obviously, what the Torah wants that you should do with this mitzvah is something that you'll never understand, that you'll never comprehend. And no, there's something very basic that the Torah wants to be mechanech me. And if you understand why my parents would tell me to do something, why can't you understand that Hashem should tell me to do the same thing for the same reason? That's sort of what the Rambam. Basically, the Rambam says that if Hashem tells you, let's say, to put on a seatbelt, it doesn't have to mean that there's some code and some buttons that you press while you put on a seatbelt that turns on a light somewhere else. No, it turns on a light, in your seat, and it tells you that you should be safe. And Hashem sometimes says things that just make sense. Fine, but that's again part of a bigger shmooze, and not really for now. But mamish no shaykhs to what we were saying. So anyway, what we're trying to get to is like this. So we said that Shemona Parakim is really 5 Parakim. And the 4th Perik was the central thesis of Shemona Parakim, and that was the whole idea of the middle path, and when a person veers off the middle path, how to get back on, when to be extreme, how much to be extreme, the percentages, all that. Now, Perik Vav was sort of an appendix to Perik Dalet. Perik Vav spoke about morally, this person that is regulated, and this person that's balanced, and this person that's independent of any extreme, is that person the ideal person? This person that naturally won't want to steal because he did the mitzvahs of the Torah, and the mitzvahs of the Torah were given to bring a person into a certain pattern of behavior. Is this ideal? Because according to what Chazal say, that it's always better to live in inner conflict, and you get schar for the conflict. Therefore, it would be counterproductive that the Torah should really refine you, because a refined character is just taking away your schar, and it's taking away from your battle. So that's what the Rambam dealt with. So we had Perik Dalet that talks about being regulated, and that the mitzvahs of the Torah bring you to a certain situation where you will become elevated, and you become less animalistic and more refined. And Perik Vav, which we saw deals with this problem, what's better, that's sort of an appendix to that. Now here, Perik Zion is basically an appendix to Perik Hey. Perik Hey, we saw, was the Rambam exploring this idea of the greater goal. And that is that a person should constantly focus on the prize. And that is Ladas, to be Yodeas Hashem. And that is the tachlis of the entire Pirkei Avos and all of the Samidis, and really according to the Rambam, that is the tachlis of all Taryag mitzvahs. The tachlis of all the Taryag mitzvahs is to fix our machine, to fix that our body and our mind and our emotions and our appetites, everything should be perfectly regulated, that a person should be in the position and in the situation that he could attain a relation, he could connect Hashem through his mind, through Hasagat Hashem, through Yediyas Hashem, and all these things bring a Hav of Yira and all that. So really, the entire Torah is really for the tachlis of Atares Ladas, Da Lekei Bicha Vavdeu, and Bechol Derechecha De'eu. Bechol Derechecha De'eu really means Bechol Derechecha means not only the Averis, like we saw, even the mitzvahs. Every single thing a person does in his life should bring him to Yediyas Hashem. Now, the Rambam is going to explore this inyan now a little more, and that is that the Rambam said in Pirkei that someone who is fully focused, someone who is constantly mindful and aware that his greater goal is only to attain a relationship and a connection to Hashem through his mind, that person is mamash like the Nevi'im. And now the Ram is really going to explain what a Novi is. Now, Again, this is not the place. The place is in Nevuchim Chelik Beis. That is, the Rambam calls in many places Sefer HaNevuah. But this is sort of a synopsis of what the Rambam sees a Navi. Now, it's important to know before that is that we grew up. Now, not everything that we were told. Sometimes people get this idea, especially when you learn Rambam, you learn different Malachim, the Rishonim, that you grew up with everything that you were taught is a lie. Now, it's I think it's a stage. It's a healthy stage to mature, where you think that you discover the entire world, and then everything you've been told is a lie. Eventually, you understand that it's not a lie. It just means that sometimes the consensus that we were taught is not like the Rambam. So, you can pick and choose if you want, or you could just really see what the consensus of Chachmei Yisrael and the Doreseim is. Anyway, but according to the Rambam, Nevuah is not the way we imagine Nevuah. The way we imagine Nevuah is that Hashem wants to talk to Klal Yisrael. So what happens is Hashem chooses a person, and Hashem gives that person Nevuah. So Hashem looks around, who's the most, whoever he wants to choose, and then he gives that person a Nevuah, and that person speaks. The Rambam believes that this is impossible. It's not shaykh b'metzias, such a thing. Nevuah, according to the Rambam, is only for someone who prepared for it intensely. Not only, obviously, you're talking about spiritual preparation from an emotional perspective, from a spiritual perspective. His middas have to be completely refined. His mind has to be very sophisticated. He has to be masig, certain intense. He has to have real hasagas in Yiddish Hashem. He has to have a vivid imagination. There's certain qualities that a person must have to have in Nevuah. And if not, he won't be a Navi. Nothing to talk about. It's just like Hashem is not going to choose a cheer, or alternatively, a fish or a donkey to give Nevuah. And this is like the Rambam sort of slipping in that he believes that Bilam's donkey could. For that reason, the tremendous ramifications for the Rambam's perspective. One of them, is that the Rambam believes that the whole Klal Yisrael Bar Sinai didn't hear Anochi and Li'er Lechem Pi Gvura, which is a tremendous problem and something that we need to deal with, and is contradictions in the Rambam. But if the entire Klal Yisrael became Nevi'im by Matan Torah, that sort of pulls out the rug under the whole, and the whole Rambam's whole idea of what a Navi is. So that's why the Rambam, and there's a Ramban and Pashas Yisrael, these are long discussions in the Rishonim. In any case, but what's important for us to know is that according to the Rambam, Nevuah isn't just Hashem using a person as a device, as a microphone to talk to. A person is not a channel. A Navi is a channel, but that Navi, most of the work has to be done by him, and he has to put himself in a position that Hashem should choose him. So basically, a person has to do an intense workout throughout. It's a lifetime of work, and a person that's an elevated person, and a person that's a refined person, mamish refined, betachlis hashlemas, and his mind is very, very developed in elikus. That person is a person that if you bring yourself up to a certain level, then basically it's Hashem's choice if he wants to talk to you. But Hashem's not going to talk to a dummy or a person like me and you, or to a frog. It doesn't work. Hashem's voice is really, it has to do with the way we perceive Hashem's voice, right? Because if Hashem's voice is just like talking on a mic, then Hashem can use whatever he wants as a mic. But Hashem doesn't have a voice. So Hashem's voice is something that something that the Navi is. These are certain pictures and images and hasagas that the Navi gets that he has to interpret in his mind. And basically his mind is sort of a filtration system in which he gets a whole bunch of messages, and he has to interpret that to, and a Navi Emes is someone who knows how to take this information and give it over. So that's why if you take someone who has no idea in Elikus and he doesn't understand, and when he closes his eyes, he thinks about hot dogs, so nothing's going to happen. It's just fine. So I understand there was a lot there to unpack, and we probably even went beyond our time, but let's just read some of it inside and we'll pick up the rest later. So because we're talking about this ideal person, this Navi, the Navi is basically, that's what we're coming off, that the Tachlis Hashlemus, if you would take Shemona Prakim and you would perfect it and you would dedicate your entire life to it, you would follow the letter of every word, what really the Rambam says is that you'll be a Navi. Or you'll basically be in a position that if Hashem would look for a Navi in this generation, he would choose you. because that is really what a Navi is. And that's what Gemara says, that there was a Baskal, I think we quoted it last time, and I still don't remember who it was. I think it was Betpetira of Hillel Zotn, that there was someone here that was Roy, Shetish Alav Shechina K'Moshe Rabbeinu, Ve'ena Da Roy Lekach, right? So this is the idea that Ba'etzem Hillel Zotn was, had he been 400 years earlier, he would have been a Navi, because he put himself in a position, he refined his character, his mind was completely developed, and he was completely connected to Hashem with every fiber of his being, and so he was really perfect Navi material. The problem is that he was born a little too late for that. But that had nothing to do with him. That had to do with the fact that Hashem basically shut that channel of Nevuah, but he, for his own sake, he was in that position. Some Midrashim, Nagadatis, and in the Gemara, some of the Nevi'im, Misharois Hashem, Me'achorim Misachim Ravim. That some Nevi'im saw Hashem through many barriers, many screens. And some of the Nevi'im saw Hashem through less barriers and less screens. So basically, depending on someone's level of Nevuah, that is how he saw his Nevuah, right? So some Nevi'im saw Hashem, really this comes across a lot in the Nevuah, right? You see, let's say Daniel, Daniel, Zechariah, you can make the case about Yecheskel's Merkava. There's certain Nevuahs that are very, very cryptic and very unclear. And the more unclear they are, the tendency is that there are more imagery. It's something very interesting. So the more fantastical imagery you'll see, first of all, usually it's much, much later. The Nevi'im are later. And the Nevuahs B'chalal are ambiguous and unclear. And these things are connected. Because what the Rambam is saying is that you'll see that the Nevi'im, that their Nevuah is clear, no fantastical imagery. There are no weird animals with 100 heads and millions of eyes. If everything is clear and understandable, then that implies that there are less screens, right? There are less barriers between the Navi and what he sees and how he's trying to convey it. And then in every, as the later the Nevuah gets, the more levushim the Nevuah has, right? The more it's shrouded in mystery. And that has to do with the Navi itself. So obviously it has to do with the Navi, and it has to do probably with this Tkufa also. So it's not only about him, it's about the time he's in, it's about the Nevuah that's available to that generation. In any case, we have this idea of Espeklari Amir and Espeklari She'en Amir. So we're going to see this applied to Moshe Rabbeinu versus the other Nevi'im. Moshe Rabbeinu saw Hashem through one transparent screen. Espeklari Amir basically can mean a completely translucent screen. He saw Hashem through a fully transparent barrier and screen. Shem Amare Ha'asuya Meguf. I mean, Espeklari, he's explaining the word Espeklari. It means something like a mirror that's made out of a translucent material, like crystal or like shoya, like you see in the Mishnahs. You know what? I think we went over time. So, I think today was more of an introduction to the idea that we're going to explore Mitchem, I guess, next week. And that is that we have to understand that according to the Rambam, the ultimate person is someone who follows. The Rambam says it somewhere that Aristotle was massing all the emes in the world till the level of a Nevuah, right? Basically, and the Rambam himself somewhere says on a pshat that he gives, is I think in the beginning of Nevuchim Chedek Gimel, if I'm not mistaken, it's where he gives a pshat in the Nevuah of Yecheskel or Eve. I'm not sure which one it is. Either it's the Mara of Yecheskel or Eve, and there he says, listen to this pshat I'm going to tell you because it's mamash Nevuah. I believe, so Nevuah, so really in the Rambam's world, the the ultimate connection of a person is to be Masik Hashem through his mind, through his intellect, through his reason. And that's the way he's Masik Hashem, and that's the way he connects to Hashem, and that's Ahava V'yirah, and understanding the ways of Hashem, understanding the nature of Hashem's existence, and the relationship of Hashem with this world. All these things are included in Yediyas Hashem of the highest level, and that is the nitzchis of a person. That is really the tachlis. And to be in that position, a person needs to be completely refined and completely elevated, and he has to focus at every single action, reaction, sub-action, anything that he does in his entire life. Every time he eats something, every time he goes to sleep, every person he schmoozes to, the place he decides to buy a house, the shul he decides to daven, the kid that she decides to eat, and how much to eat and when to eat. Every single action he does in his life, every business decision he makes is going to be geared to the greater goal of Yediyas Hashem. And a person that exercises and lives on this regiment and lives on this discipline, that person will attain the highest level of shleimus a person could possibly attain, and that is nevuah. Now, if the person will actually have nevuah or not, that's up to Hashem. That's not up to him. But he will be a person like the Bnei Nevi'im, right? Like they train their entire life to be in a position that Hashem would choose. That if Hashem so chose to talk to a person, that would be a perfect vessel and a channel in which Dvar Hashem can be received. So the Rambam here is going to explore different levels of Nevi'im and what is that ultimate person look like? Because when we strive our whole life, we have to have a picture of what are we trying to look like. So the people obviously we look up to, and the people that were completely bottled to Ratzon Hashem, like Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Nevi'im, and the Tzadikim, and the Tanam and Amoraim. These are the people obviously that we look up to and we strive to be. Now we're understanding what makes them who they are, and what separates one from another, right? What separates Moshe Rabbeinu from all the other Nevi'im? What separates Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov from the late? All these people. So obviously we're dealing with a very sensitive topic, because we're really we're armchair, obviously we're not, and we shouldn't go there to be in a position where we're ascribing certain things to Nevi'im and people like Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Moshe Rabbeinu, people obviously who we could hardly even mention their names, but it's Torah, and the Torah gives us the profiles of these people, not that it should be a theoretical study, but it's something that has to do with us. It's something that demands from us something in our personal avodah, and exactly what, where, and how, that we'll see next time, but hopefully we got some idea, or even if not, we got a whole bunch of messed up ideas about the Rambam's concept of nevuah. And right, the one thing that we saw inside in the Rambam is that every Navi perceived his nevuah differently. Some of them had more barriers, some of them had less barriers. And what exactly is the nature of these barriers? Right? When you say that a certain Navi uses a lot of imagery and his nevuahs are very ambiguous, and that is because he sees his nevuah through a murky screen, right? He sees it through some murky something. Now, obviously, he's not just looking in the dark, because that's me. We're looking in the dark and we have no idea. We don't even see, right? We're completely blind. So it's obvious that when these Nevi'im see something, and it's written in the Nevi'im in the Kisvei HaKodesh, that it's obviously it's obviously emes, and it's Hashem talking to these people. Now they see something, and just it's murky. So what makes one nevuah not so clear, and the other nevuah, like obviously Moshe Rabbeinu, whose nevuah is of a complete different nature than all the other Nevi'im, what makes his nevuah spaklari amira? That's translucent, that's murky. What is this glass we're talking about? What's this mirror we're talking about? That we will explore next time in Mitzvah.